We know that Tony Holohan, Chief Medical Officer, has advised that, probably due to the new variants, higher transmissibility, that we need tighter restrictions on travel into the country. Why haven't we seen that happen as yet? He says that the PCR tests before, 3 days before someone arrives, they're simply not robust enough alone to contain the spread.
He's right, and it was never, I suppose, there was always this one of the issues going back for months. When we looked at this, is that it doesn't give a foolproof cover, that you do have false negatives coming through. And it is true, we have to look and do more because of these new variants and because we really want to get to the end of this safely. We did immediately, as soon as we heard about this UK variant and increased transmissibility, the next day we introduced a ban on travel. And then we followed up with following the European Centre of Disease Control, the sort of medical advice about, do this in the best medical way. And part of that, the screening, the requirement for PCRs, is just an extra layer. It's not to replace.
It is, but what about the two things people are calling for? Antigen testing happening speedily and mandatory quarantine. I understand the difficulties about bringing in mandatory quarantine. We've heard Leo Varadkar come out and describe them as well. But these new variants appear to be driving infections in great numbers. Surely it's time to revisit this issue.
Well, first is in the first one, antigen testing, and that will be an additional measure. We will be introducing antigen testing it'll be for hauliers. And it's because the French government, and there is concern, and we do have to look at doing more. And the Taoiseach at the European Council meeting last night, I think, came back and said, yes, there is going to be further measures, or we're going to have to look at with our European colleagues, because we do
quarantine
have to do this in the coordinated way included. But first, we will be introducing additional antigen testing on hauliers, and that presents real difficulties. But we're doing it for that because the French are looking for that extra safety layer.
When we look
in terms of quarantine. Yeah. Again, the quarantine would apply if listening to, again, health advice and others. The question is, do we apply it on those who don't have a PCR test coming in? Now, the truth is that number is down to a minute number because the airlines are checking before someone goes on board a flight.
But Minister, should it not be everyone has a PCR test and everyone is quarantined? We've seen people back to normal life in New Zealand. We've seen them in Australia. What's stopping us from doing this? Is it the North?
Yes, for one reason, the main reason, because we do have an open border. We won't seal that border, and as long as we have that border,
okay. and that's fair enough with the political sensitivities on this island. Has Downing Street been approached about an all-island policy, or indeed the Northern Executive? Has the Irish government asked for that to happen?
Yes, I mean, we're constantly in touch with colleagues up north and with the UK.
And we've asked for an all-island approach.
An all-island, in terms of looking always for cooperation in terms of how we apply. But there are political sensitivities around that up north, and so it isn't something that's in our remit. We don't have complete control.
Two quick questions for you before I let you go. Restrictions, we know that they're not going to end next weekend when this set runs out. Is it Paddy's Day that we're looking at? A lot of that is in the papers?
I think it'll be varied. It may. I mean, obviously, the first issue is around our Leaving Cert students and special needs classes. In terms of a return to class for them, is probably the first key issue. I think there will be variation. For example, construction workers, where we saw the really very low levels of transmission, working in open air, is very different to maybe some other work areas. So I think it will not be immediate. This is what the European Centre of Disease Control said last night.
But for people who maybe want some kind of hope, as in we know where we're at, but that we won't be here in September, does Paddy's Day seem like a reasonable time that we might see some easing of these restrictions, 6 weeks beyond the end?
And some categories potentially earlier than that.